Hey guys, so it is the middle of May, and I don't know if it is like this where you are at, but here in Vancouver, when it gets to about May, end of May, things start to change. You know, it's no longer gray and gloomy, it becomes sunny and warm and beautiful. Summers in Vancouver are gorgeous, but that means one thing, specifically one thing for me. It means that this attic is gonna be roasting hot, like in the matter of weeks, if not days. It's gonna be unbearably hot in here. And that just means one thing. It means I can't be here, I gotta get outside. Hi guys, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Felicia from SweetGeorgia Yarns, and we are a hand-dyed knitting yarn company based in Vancouver in Canada. This is Taking Back Friday. This is a space where I come every Friday and we talk about knitting and spinning and weaving and dyeing and all those fabulous things about the fiber arts. Specifically, I like to talk about making time to make things. And today's episode is going to be quite full because we're going to be talking about all of those things. It was Mother's Day this past weekend here, and I was absolutely spoiled and felt wonderful to be with my family. You know, my husband got me breakfast and we went out for dim sum and we went out for brunch with family. It was great. It was fantastic. But it's so funny because one tiny sliver of a thing made it so much more awesome. And that was that I got basically like about half an hour, 45 minutes to myself in the backyard to do a little bit of dyeing. Now, I had talked previously about how I have this loom, the big loom. It's set up to do a blanket. I was going to remake this blanket that I had messed up previously, and I was getting the dummy warp ready. Everything is ready about this loom to start making another blanket. Now, I have, from the first time that I tried to make the blanket, I had a couple of warps that I dyed that ended up being kind of a mistake. I mistakenly dyed them purple. I didn't mean to fully dye them purple. I wanted kind of a gradient effect. So I had these 3 purple warp chains already. So what I thought I would do is I would just wind a couple more warp chains to fill in the gaps and use those mistake warp chains to make the whole blanket. So this is the original color that I had. I have 3 of these ones. And I thought, well, you know, rather than having 3 stripes, vertical stripes that were all this one color, I thought I would over-dye a little bit. So I over-dyed one of the chains to make it this color. I over-dyed it basically with this color. So with this color overlapping with this color made this color. So now I have 3 colors for the warp. And then I also wanted to make something that was like a little bit warm, a little bit orangey. I love these colors. And so I dyed myself this skein here. I love it. To me, it looks like a peach Bellini. It's just got like reds and corals and goldenrod, and it's fun. I love it. This is one of my most favorite kinds of colors. I feel like there's just so much that happens in something like this. So I'm going to mix all of these together to make a blanket warp. And then I'm going to weave it with the mohair. And I'm not going to mix different weights of mohair this time. I'm going to stick with one weight of mohair. I'm going to try to stick with one idea to make this blanket. It's going to be good. So that's what I have been doing. Now, we have been doing a lot of weaving around here. Like pretty much every day, I've been lucky enough to have a chunk of time to, you know, weave a tiny little bit. And of course, part of it is because I have been and was preparing a class for the rigid heddle class for the School of SweetGeorgia. And so you can see this is the one that we wove in that class. This one is called the Square One Scarf, and it's just the simplest piece of hand woven cloth. And I basically teach in that class how to get this set up and how to start making this short little scarf. It could be literally the first ever piece of fabric you ever weave. And so the scarf is so short, it's set up that you could theoretically weave this entire thing with just one skein of yarn. Or if you want to mix colors, you could do one skein for the warp and then one skein for the weft. In this case, because I happen to have a lot of yarn around here, a lot of different colored yarn, I popped in a few different wefts, so that way I could see kind of like an interplay of the different colors and things like that. But this is basically what I've been working on for a little bit of time. Now I also have another weaving project here that is almost done. This is the second project that is in that rigid heddle course. It's almost done. I'm going to film the end of that, and then that's going to go up in the school maybe in about a week or so. Yeah, so there's been a bit of that kind of weaving going on. So this project first, and then this second project, which uses a lace weight for the weft, give a little bit of a different texture. And then I did warp up the original loom again. This is the Ashford 16-inch samplet loom. So I warped this one up again with the same instructions and pattern basically as this one. We're calling this one the square one scarf. I warped it up with just completely different colors just to have something to compare against. Now, it's really, it's been fun because, you know, Nina has been looking at this loom. She's been really interested. Every time I kind of pull out the loom in the evenings to work on it, she'll kind of run over and she goes, oh, Mama's going to do the thing.
I did it.
Okay, push it down all the way. There you go.
Now what I do?
Now there's a hole.
Got this.
Mm-hmm.
What this one is for? I did it well.
Mm-hmm. And she's very, very excited about trying to do some weaving. And so what I thought I would do is I would go and I got actually from my parents this past weekend when we met up for Mother's Day, I got the loom that I had as a kid. So they brought me back this loom. This loom is a Fisher-Price loom. It's a toy loom from the 1980s. I think that you can still buy them on eBay. I think I've seen them, you know, available on eBay. But basically, it's just a plastic loom. It's basically a rigid heddle loom. It is very simply, you have your yarn here looped around pegs in the front, pegs in the back, and then as the yarn is crossing over this part, which is the heddle, it's either going on the top of the heddle or it's going in the slots of the heddle. So this is basically just like a rigid heddle. It's like holes and slots and holes and slots. And so it creates, you can see, a shed. It's got a little opening here. And the easiest thing about this is you can just flip this little lever and it changes the shed. It's so cool. It's so cool. I love this loom. It's just something that I played with when I was a kid. I used some acrylic yarn on it from Kmart, and it really kind of just sparks your imagination and makes you think that these things are possible. Like that, oh, you could make your own cloth. You could do whatever. And so for a kid, I think it just can give you that spark, that idea that, oh, you know, I could do this thing. And so that's what I'm hoping to give Nina, is sort of like the opportunity to try that. I'm sure that both Russell and Nina will both be kind of excited to see that new machine and how it works. So you can see lots and lots of weaving is going on right now. You know, the blanket project, these rigid heddle projects are going on. And I was planning on sort of going full steam ahead and making the next weaving course, which is about using a multi-shaft loom. I really want to get everybody sort of to the point where you could use a table loom where it has maybe 4 shafts and you can lift each shaft individually. Maybe you work on a floor loom, maybe you work on a table loom, whatever you're working on, to go and look at being able to do other kinds of weave structures with a multi-shaft loom, but just also a lot of the efficiency that's gained and things like that. So I'm really excited about diving in that way. But then I was sort of thinking that maybe it might be a little bit overwhelming since, you know, for many people in the school, we've just kind of come to this point where like, oh, we got our rigid heddle looms. We're going to start to weave this fabric. For me to just all of a sudden go and say, oh, we're going to go and do other looms now is kind of not fair. So it makes sense to take a bit of a break and shift gears away from making more weaving stuff right now to give people the opportunity to actually make some of the things on the rigid heddle loom, to do some experimentation. I am going to be doing some more rigid heddle weaving because I want to show what it feels like and looks like to work with different yarns and different textures and how they combine. And we don't even have to do anything different than what we were already doing in the class. I mean, like, we're warping it up, putting yarn on it, adding some weft, very, very simple things. But to enjoy this interplay between colors, color and texture, just all those kinds of things. So I think there's lots and lots of things for us to explore already with the weaving side of things without having to go and look at other looms right now. So there's a little bit of that happening. Also, I am putting out a video that is probably already online right now. You can find it, and it is about circular weaving. So in the month before, we put out a course called Frame Loom Weaving Basics, and it was basically just giving you sort of like an idea of how to make a frame loom project, like very simple tapestry techniques, using a wooden frame loom and going over, under, and doing all sorts of things like that. Now, I did, for the H&H trade show, make a whole bunch of these kind of like circular frame loom projects like this and like this. And so I wanted to record this little tutorial to explain to people how to warp something like this and how to start to add some fiber or some yarn to that. So that tutorial is also available on our School of Sweet Georgia website. So you can go take a look at that. It is available and free for everybody to watch. But if you'd like to join the Frame Loom course, you can find that through the school as well. Now, it's been really great. Charlotte was really excited about these. And so she put together some kits at the studio. So we have like a whole bunch of these circular weaving kits where you will get the hoop, you'll get thread to do the warping of the hoop, and then you'll also get a little bit of fiber. You'll also get a little bit of this superwash soft in a bunch of different colors. There's a bunch of different palettes. So she's created a whole bunch of kits, and those are going to be available on our shop site as well. So yeah, if you're interested in doing something like this or giving this a try, you can go check out one of those kits as well. So that's about it for weaving. Now, on the knitting side of things, I have been working very strategically to do only one project at a time. There's lots of other things that I'd like to make, but I'm trying to be really, 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 really focused and only making one thing at a time. So I am on the last lace section of my Waiting for Rain shawl from Sylvia McFadden. She's the designer of that shawl. So it's looking great. I'm just chugging along on it, and it's going to be done soon. And so this is about the time when I start thinking about, well, what should I make next? And I've been feeling a little bit like not sure what to make, not sure what to knit. And then all of a sudden, Caitlin Hunter came out with a new pattern. So she's come out with a new pattern called Novelli. I hope that's how you pronounce it. Novelli. This is her sketch of it. I think it's super cute, but basically the idea is it's a relaxed, lightweight summer sweater knit in the round from the bottom up, and it has color work at the bottom, and then tiny little sleeves. It looks really like comfortable. I think that's what I've been missing. When I went to H&H with Allison, at the end of H&H, and we were packing up all the garment samples and things like that, I had with me my worsted boxy that I'd made out of the strawberry tea color in the mohair silk decay. And it shows off that yarn so lovely, and it's shiny, and it's soft, and it's silky. And so I let Allison take it with her and keep it in London, and to take it to show shops and things like that she was meeting with. And so I'm kind of missing that one sweater out of my wardrobe. So I have a ton actually of that one yarn still available. And so I was thinking about knitting this other sweater, which was, of course, introduced to me by the grocery girls. This is the Hamilton sweater, and it's beautiful. I saw it, obviously, Tracy from the Grocery Girls was wearing it at Knit City, and so everybody was asking her about that sweater, and I was asking about that sweater. It just looks so comfortable. And so this is kind of, I think I have almost exactly enough mohair silk decay to make this sweater. I still have it in that strawberry tea colorway. And so I'm missing my strawberry tea sweater, So perhaps this would be a good fill-in sweater. It's kind of like also a pullover, also very easy fit, easy comfortable sort of thing. But yeah, that sweater or this Novelli sweater. The thing that is making me really excited about this Novelli sweater is the idea that it's only like 4 skeins of yarn for the size that I'm making, because there's no long sleeves. Of course, it is kind of like a wide, boxy sort of fit, but it seems like, I mean, for the size that I'm going to make, which is like size 4, it's 672 yards of the main color. So that's basically like 1.5, almost 2 skeins of sock yarn. So what I was thinking was, because I made this promise at the beginning of the year to not use any new yarn, I'm basically choosing yarn from my stash. So I have a couple skeins here of this stuff. That was like a test. It's a test batch or something like that. I don't even know. It's a test batch. So there's 2 skeins of this. The only 2 skeins of this exist in the whole world, but 2 skeins of this. This one, and then for the contrasting bottom Fair Isle section, I thought I would use this one here, which is, this is fauna. This is like leftover fauna from a project. And this is a super, super old skein of a colorway that we called Autumn Flame. It doesn't exist anymore. It was really, really hard to dye, really hard to exhaust. So this is like one of the only skeins that we have. So this one, thinking about doing that as color work on the bottom with this. So these skeins together. Could be this, or if not this, maybe this color. It makes for more contrast, a little bit more muted. Yeah, not sure. But basically that's the idea. Something like that. That's going to be the next project. Either the Hamilton or this Novelli. I think I'm leaning towards the Novelli right now because I want something to wear for summer. I also wonder about wearing wool in the summer. Although Vancouver's really not that hot. So, you know, wearing superwash merino in the summer might not be that bad. Now, if you guys are looking for something else to knit as well, I mean, Novelli seems like a very fun thing to make with just 4 skeins of yarn. But also, we have our mystery knit along, which is going to be coming out this summer. Now, the MCAL doesn't start until August 27th, and it's going to run for 6 weeks this year. We're going to do pre-sales starting June 4th. So starting June 4th on our website, you'll be able to find the yarns for that. If you want to, just to make them from your own stash or to mix and combine whichever colors you like, they are actually going to be 5 skeins in this particular mystery knit along project. So now I do want to let you know that in May we do have this very, very special little sale that's going to be happening, and it's actually starting today and it's going to go until May 27th. And so if you want to go to our shop and get 20% off any of the yarns that are there, the yarns, not including the prismatics, not including the play along packs, and not including fiber. But if it's just yarn, skeins of yarn, and the party of 5, any of those you can get for 20% off from now until May 27th. Now, after June 1st, there will be a price increase on all of our yarns. So this is sort of the time where you can get them for the original price plus 20% as well. So it's kind of like an extra special thing. You'll need the code May Surprise 20. So May Surprise 20, and you just enter that code and you'll get 20% off all your yarn and your party of 5s in the cart. Now, what else is new? In June, we're going to be doing this very, very special video, and it's going to be happening on June 7th. And I'm encouraging you to sort of set your calendar, set your reminders, mark it in your calendar to come back on June 7th to watch this video. And it is basically going to be a preview of all the things that we're coming out with for this fall. Now, we have in the past done this video specifically for our yarn shop owners, but in this case, what we wanted to do was kind of open it up and show everybody what we're going to be bringing out in fall. So I hope that you guys will come back and watch for that one. So that's kind of my knitting news right now. Like I said at the beginning, we're talking about all of the things today. And one of the things that I feel like has been kind of like, it's been kind of like a little itch that I've been wanting to scratch for some time now, but it's just not the right season for it really, is that I've wanted to do a little bit more spinning. And I've sort of had these nudges and these pushes in towards that spinning direction from a couple of different places. You know, I'm going to talk about this more in next week's video, but this idea of sort of moving through different crafts in different seasons is a big theme for me. And so, you know, it has been some time since I've been able to sit down and do very much spinning. You know, like the kids like to put their fingers in the spokes. They think it's hilarious, and it's really hard to just get going with the spinning. And I have all these bobbins that I spun last season that have not even been plied because it's just so hard for some reason to sit down and get those done. But I've been feeling this nudge towards it. One of the reasons is because I got a copy of this book. Look at the cover of that book. Isn't it absolutely gorgeous? So this book is written and produced, photographed, everything by these two women, Rachel and Katrina, Rachel Smith and Katrina Stewart. Rachel Smith is the host of Woolen Spinning on YouTube. She's also got a blog called Welford Pearls. She runs a Patreon. She's just doing so much spinning education online right now. And Katrina Stewart, she's also the owner of Crafty Jacks. They make hand-dyed yarn. They make hand-dyed fiber. She makes specifically carded bats for spinning. And she is our sort of resident spinning instructor at the SweetGeorgia studio. Both these women, awesome, fabulous local spinners and weavers now and makers. And they've written this book that is great. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm going to show you the inside of this book because it's amazing. So the book is called Unbraided. The idea is that, you know, when you look at a braid of fiber, a braid of hand-painted, hand-dyed spinning fiber, you're like, well, how is it going to spin up? And the answer is, well, it depends. And so what they've done here is they have talked about a little bit of color theory, a little bit about spinning techniques and how to do different kinds of spinning and plying. But they've also taken like one fiber, one colorway, split it up and spun each one 6 different ways. So there's like a traditional 2-ply, center pull 2-ply, traditional 3-ply, chain ply, fractal 2-ply, fractal 3-ply. And then not only spun them up, but also knit them into swatches. So this one is very blue, so it looks kind of even. And this one is very pink, but you can start to see that as you go into the more hand-painted ones, so the more high contrast, the more variegated, the more hand-painted your fiber is, then the more contrast and variation you're going to get in your skeins, but then also in the final finished swatches. This is such a great reference book. Like if you're looking at a spinning fiber and you're thinking, well, what do I do with it? What do I want? What kind of effect do I want to create in the end knitted product? It's hard to know what any of these skeins are going to look like if you don't swatch them up and find out what they're going to do. So I know very often you get a spinning fiber and you just sit down and you start spinning your default, and maybe your default is just, you know, you're going to spin it from end to end and then fold it in half and basically ply it. Like, what is that going to produce at the end of the day? So it's really about like making decisions, making informed decisions about what you do with your very precious and beautiful fiber. So this is fantastic. At the end, there's also a number of patterns that they've designed and written. There's one, this is my favorite one. I've seen actually Rachel wear this one. It's beautiful. It's called the Looking Glass Shawl. And there's basically like a hand-painted color that has been Navajo plied or chain plied to make sort of a gradient effect, and then contrast color, sort of a natural, all-natural contrast color. So that shawl is lovely. I would totally make that. So this is book Unbraided. It is available right now from Rachel and Katrina. I'll put a link down below if you guys want to find that as well. It's awesome. But it has been sort of encouraging me and nudging me towards doing a little bit more spinning myself. Now, I'm very lucky that we happen to have some fiber here and available to spin. I'm going to show you this one here. This is a spinning fiber that we dyed as a custom colorway for Shacked. So Shacked Spindle and Company, they make baby wolf looms. They make the Shacked matchless spinning wheel that I use. They make all these amazing and wonderful spinning and weaving equipment and tools. It's just, yeah, I love them. So they invited us to help make this hand-painted colorway for them. And this one happens to be on Polworth and silk. So this is a Polworth wool, 85% and 15% silk blend. This fiber is their 50th anniversary colors mixed together, and it's available right now on the Shacked website. Now, as part of Shack's 50th anniversary, they sort of commissioned this special spinning fiber to be done, but they also are doing a spin along that is going to be happening at the beginning of June. So I believe that you can go to their website, you can sign up. I signed up as well, and you sign up for an email notification list, which is going to be for the spin along. So you can join them for June to sort of get ideas and tips on how you might want to spin something like this. But I've been looking through Unbraided, through the book, and thinking about how I might want to spin this. Maybe make that shawl, actually. That might be fun. But yes, spinning is a little bit on my mind right now. Now, Katrina, who I just mentioned, is part of this book, who helped co-write this book. She does carded bats as part of her business for Crafty Jacks, but she also did a carding class for us at the School of SweetGeorgia. So you can also find that at the school, and it's called Carding for Color. And she shows sort of how to mix and blend different colors together, how to make gradients, how to make bats, how to add sari silk, how to do all sorts of things with carding and with bats. So yeah, I've been feeling like making some other things lately. Okay, so now let's talk about dyeing. I am, of course, so happy to have had that, just a few minutes to be able to do some dyeing in the backyard. It is what reminded me that in the summertime, I don't want to be in this attic. I mean, I don't want to be in this really hot and stuffy, sweltering environment trying to weave in here or make things. I am thinking about, moving my looms downstairs where it's cooler. You can take a rigid heddle loom, put it on a stand and take it outside into the backyard. I can even take my spinning wheels into the backyard. I can do a lot of those things. I can't move my big floor loom outside to weave. So seasonally, it's not what I'm going to be doing in the summer. Instead, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a lot more dyeing and dyeing outside. So I have been recently cleaning the garage, clearing things out, sorting out the acid dyes from the fiber reactor dyes, getting all of that stuff sorted. So there's going to be more dyeing conversation going on soon. Now, if you're interested and you're coming to Knit City in the fall, I am going to be teaching my dyeing workshop at the SweetGeorgia studio. I've taught this, it's going to be 3 years now, the third year that I'm going to be teaching this class. Now, it's basically working inside the SweetGeorgia studio where we do our production dyeing. The workshop is open to about 15 people. That's about as many people as we can fit in that space without without just, trampling over each other. And we work sort of in groups, in pairs, in groups to do a whole bunch of different dyes. So in the past 2 workshop seasons, we have done, a sort of mini skein set. Everybody goes home with a mini skein set. Everybody goes home with a layered skein. Everybody goes home with either a hand-painted skein or a variegated skein, like a low water immersion skein. So there's all sorts of different techniques, but basically everybody would go home with 3 items after a 3-hour period of time. Now, in the past couple of years, we found that 3 hours is tight to make 3 skeins of yarn. So we decided to extend the time a little bit this year. So it's going to be a 4-hour workshop from 10 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. Of course, we'll take a break and we'll have lunch and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, we'll have a little bit more time. It'll be a little bit more relaxed. It'll be a little bit more opportunity to ask questions and things like that. So if you would like to join, I know that registration happens through Knit City, and registration opens on June 15th at a specific time. You'll have to check the website to find out that specific time. I know that the first year that we did this workshop, it sold out in 3 minutes. And last year, the workshop sold out within the first 1 minute. So I'm hoping that this year, if you are interested in joining the workshop, just try to be at your computer at the time when registration opens. I think that would really help with trying to get into the class. Now, another option for joining a dyeing workshop is we are going to be doing our retreat at Whistler this November. And so there's a video that I did about the retreat and sort of the philosophy behind what we're trying to do about the retreat. But the basic idea is that there's going to be 3 workshop times, 3 sort of open studio slots. And for each one of those open studio times, you can choose which fiber art you want to do. So maybe you want to do Saturday morning weaving, Saturday afternoon dyeing, Sunday morning spinning, or something like that. Or you want to do Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon dyeing and Sunday morning spinning, or whichever. So there's just a lot of flexibility and a lot of choice for what you want to do for that weekend. It's very, very open. But I will be hosting the 3 open studios that have to do with dyeing. And in those, they're going to be 3 hours long. We're going to have a whole bunch of equipment. I'm going to bring all my dyes. They're all going to be pre-mixed for you. All of the sort of the premixes that we like the colors that we've created. I'm going to bring a set of those as well for you guys to play with. And then we'll have a whole bunch of undyed yarn there. So it's basically like do what you like, make what you like on your own time. It's not going to be so much instruction, not so much lecture. It's very much hands-on, it's an open studio concept. So you can find out more about that in the other video that we've done. But I've also just now updated our website with program information, what's going to happen through the entire weekend, what the schedule is kind of going to look like. And we're starting to add more bios of the 4 people who are going to be sort of facilitating or guiding each one of the workshops. Well, they're not really workshops, they're studios. So Tabitha is going to be doing the knitting studio. I'm going to be doing the dyeing studio. Katrina, who worked on Unbraided on the book, she's going to be doing the spinning studio. And then Amanda, who is one of the co-founders of Knit City, is going to be doing the weaving one. She does a lot of rigid heddle weaving. She does a lot of frame loom weaving, and she can be there to help you if you guys are also wanting to do some weaving as well. So that is all up on the website. You can find all the retreat information on the website now. And there's still like a handful of spots. Just a handful of spots still available, so you can go and get those now. Now, finally, if you cannot travel to learn how to dye, that is the reason why we created the School of SweetGeorgia. And so in the school right now, obviously there's the 2 dye classes that I did for acid dyeing, but right now my focus this summer is to develop a whole bunch of content around fiber reactive dyes and dyeing cotton, dyeing cellulose fibers like linen and tencel and rayon and those kinds of things. And I'm going to be doing that in my backyard. The whole idea is very, minimal equipment, minimal tools. Fiber reactive dyes are great because you don't really have to heat them up. You can just use the warmth of the sun to basically heat them up and to allow that sort of dye process to happen. So you don't need a whole bunch of infrastructure necessarily for this kind of dye. It is an extremely, extremely popular dye, but I want to teach this dye technique from the perspective of somebody who's been doing acid dyeing for like 15 years. They are very, very different animals. So acid dyes are very different from fiber reactive dyes. And I had to make sort of a lot of mental shifts in order to understand fiber reactive dyes. Like if you have dyed, if you have dyed with acid dyes, you know that it's very, it can be very precise and it can be very, just very definitive, very decisive. Like you measure this amount of dye will go into the yarn. It will fully bind. It will leave nothing behind. All of the dye will go into the yarn. The dye pot will be clear and clean. It'll be like crystal clear water left behind. So you can see that all the color is in the yarn. Now, fiber reactive dyes are quite different in that they will bind to your cotton, but they will also bind to the water. They will also eventually bind to the air. So it's kind of a whole different way of thinking about things. So yeah, there's lots of odd things about working with fiber reactor dyes. From my point of view, it's a little bit odd. Things like you have to work with very, very quick turnover of your dyes. You can't be using a lot of old dye powders because they lose their effectiveness, and because they're binding with the air, they're no longer available to bind to the fiber. And so there's lots of odd things about that. So I'm kind of putting all of that information together and trying to create a process that is easy for people to do and quick, but still produce really, really good results. The good thing about this dye is that it is one of the most popular kinds of dye in the world, and probably because of the prevalence of how much cotton we have to dye. Think about tie-dye t-shirts. This is basically the dye that you would be using for this. So it's a very, very popular dye. It's very versatile. It can be applied in all sorts of different ways. And like I said, it doesn't need a whole lot of equipment. You can basically do this outside in your backyard. So I'm really, really excited about putting this content together. So the course is not ready yet, but when it's ready, we will let all of the people on our email list know. If you are interested, you can go to the School of Sweet Georgia and sign up for our email list there, and we'll let you know when the course is ready. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I know today was like a big sort of catch up everything kind of episode. It's a lot of stuff, but it's just because we haven't been together for a couple of weeks. I showed you a how to wind a ball of yarn video last week. And so we haven't really had a chance to sit down and catch up on all the things that have been going on. So I guess lots of things have been going on. So I just want to remind you guys about the sale at SweetGeorgia. It is 20% off all the yarn and Party of Fives using the code MaySurprise20. So you can look for that there. And then next week, I hope that you guys are going to come back and join me for a conversation about the philosophy that I've started to develop around finding time to make things. Now, everybody's talking about not having enough time to make things. The thing that I want to talk about is how I approach this whole thing. And I'm calling it the multi-craftual mindset. So I hope you guys will come back next week and we're going to talk about that. If you want to be notified when these videos go live, please do subscribe to this channel. And if you like this episode, please do hit like. Now, out of all the social media, we are probably the most active on Instagram. So you can find Sweet Georgia there as Sweet Georgia. You can find the School of Sweet Georgia there as School of Sweet Georgia. You can also find me there personally as Felicia Lo Wong. And you can see the things that I'm weaving at Lo Meets Loom. I know, it's 4 Instagram accounts. Nobody needs 4 Instagram accounts, but apparently I need 4 Instagram accounts. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. All right, bye for now.